Yo, good morning. Welcome back to another episode of The Sauce. I'm recording this one early. Ole Miss, South Carolina, big SEC matchup here in Columbia. Let's go.
Welcome to The Sauce. The Sauce. Sauce. Hey, get the sauce.
All right, like I said, we got Ole Miss on the road at South Carolina here. Gamecocks catching 9.5 points at home. Total sitting at 52.5, 53, or 53.5, depending on your sportsbook. We'll start with the Ole Miss offense. Obviously, as we know, one of the most powerful offenses in college football. Third in the country in yards per play, first in success rate, first in PPA. And this is after that Kentucky game where they were struggling to move the football. They're still sitting at 6th in OFEI even after that game. And if you're wondering, I mean, how they only scored 17 points against Kentucky. How are they still rated so high in all these metrics? Well, look what they did in the first 4 games. They were averaging 55 points per game, 8.85 yards per play, a success rate of 61.7%. So they were looking like the best offense in the FBS before that Kentucky game. Then obviously they were held to 17 points in the Kentucky game. 6.3 yards per play isn't terrible, but still no question, they came crashing down to earth in that Kentucky game. Jackson Dart's been great this year, over 1,800 yards passing, 13 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, over 12 yards per pass attempt is just wild. The Ole Miss passing attack through the first 4 games, over 422 passing yards a game, 11.88 yards per attempt, over 61% success rate per dropback. I mean, these are video game numbers here from the Ole Miss passing attack. But I got some bad news. They're going on the road against another tough SEC defense. They just saw Kentucky, which is a tough SEC defense. Now they're going to see another one in South Carolina. South Carolina sitting at 16th in DFEI. Now, there are some differences here. Kentucky, a very, very tough defensive interior, very strong against the run. That's not really how this South Carolina defense is built. This defense is anchored by its pass rush. They got the 2 NFL edge rushers on each side. That's why their numbers against the pass are more impressive than their numbers against the run, because that's what this South Carolina defense is. It's anchored by its pass rush. So it's another tough SEC defense, but not quite the same as the Kentucky defense. Now, the good news for Ole Miss is they run a balanced offense. I know they got Jackson Dart, the Heisman hopeful. You would think they had this explosive downfield passing attack, and they do, but their offense is pretty balanced. They can also run the ball. In fact, they're 59th in run frequency so far this year. And as good as South Carolina's defense is, let's not act like they didn't just get cooked by LSU a couple weeks back. They gave up 36 points, over 8 yards per play, over 45% success rate. So LSU did not, well, it was really the second half when LSU really turned it on. But this elite South Carolina pass rush didn't do much against LSU. I mean, LSU still threw for 285 yards in the game, over 7 yards per attempt, 47.6%. Success rate per dropback is great. So LSU was able to throw the ball in South Carolina. And the reason for that is, like we said earlier, the strength of the South Carolina defense is the pass rush. They have one of the best pass rushes in the country. Well, LSU has one of the best pass protections in the country. In fact, next to Georgia, they might be the best offensive line in terms of protecting the passer. So LSU was the perfect offense to neutralize South Carolina's elite pass rush. So the question becomes, does Ole Miss have a good pass protection? And the answer is kinda. I mean, not quite as good as LSU's, but it's pretty good. I think they were preseason ranked number 13 in terms of offensive line strength. So this is a great offensive line. So far this season, they've been better creating space in the run game than they have been in pass protection, but they've been good in both. So South Carolina's pass rush may be in trouble here against another good offensive line. I'm a little worried about Jackson Dart, though. Didn't really handle pressure well against Kentucky. I mean, he was pressured on 33.3% of his dropbacks, which isn't crazy. I mean, it's about an average amount. He was pressured on 1/3 of his dropbacks, sacked 4 times. 33.3% is an insane pressure to sack rate. You can't be taking 4 sacks on just 12 pressures. So this South Carolina pass rush is better than Kentucky. So Jackson Dart needs to come out with a better effort in terms of handling pressure in this one. But as a whole, I do like Ole Miss to run the football in South Carolina. But then we get to these splits here, and this is where I start to get a little bit worried. Ole Miss last year, as we know, one of the best offenses in the country, right? Well, where did they struggle? In these road SEC games. On the full season, Ole Miss was 13-2. In road conference games, they were just 2-2. Points per game, 31.9. on the full season. Road conference games, just 18 points per game. Yards per game, 445 on the full season. In road conference games, just 346. Now, I know you might be thinking, well, Kyle, they went on the road and played Alabama and Georgia. Yes, fair. Want to know who the other two road conference games were against last year? Mississippi State, who had a terrible defense last year, and Auburn. And they were held to, I think it was 23 points per game, 22.5 points per game against those two teams. So this was a spot where Ole Miss struggled last year. Overall, I do expect them to bounce back. Definitely not crazy about it, though. On the other side, we got the South Carolina offense, and good luck trying to figure this unit out. Not only have we seen multiple quarterbacks, right, because Sellers got hurt, we saw Robbie Ashford, but we've also seen completely night and day different type performances. Here are their numbers on the year. They're sitting 75th in yards per play, 105th in success rate, 67th in OFEI. They opened up the season against Old Dominion, and they were terrible. Just 23 points in the game, 3.65 yards per play against Old Dominion. That's awful. But then since then, they're averaging 38 points per game, 6.28 yards per play. So, I mean, just night and day. They had a really bad opener. They've been okay since. But even since then, you look at these numbers like, oh, South Carolina's been killing it offensively. I wouldn't say that's the best description of it. I mean, they've broken a few long plays. Like I said, we've seen multiple quarterbacks. I really don't think this is a good offense, but they definitely look better than that Old Dominion game. Well, regardless, they're in for it here because Ole Miss defense is looking pretty good. In their first 4 games, they're allowing just 5.5 points per game, 3.49 yards per play, 27.2% success rate is crazy. Even in the Kentucky game that they lost, the defense was fine. They allowed 20 points, but just 4.48 yards per play, 34.7% success rate. That's fine. This was a solid defensive performance. Ole Miss offense lost in that game, not the defense. Here are the Rebels' defensive numbers on the year. 5th in yards per play, 2nd in success rate, 5th in PPA, elite against the run, pretty good against the pass as well, sitting at 16th in DFEI. Look at the numbers from their defensive front. I mean, this is an elite defensive line here, elite pass rush, and elite against the run as well. Granted, they haven't played the toughest offensive competition yet, but it's not like South Carolina's offensive line is anything special. In fact, it's probably the weakest unit on the team is the South Carolina offensive line. So it looks like Sellers is going to play for South Carolina. He hasn't really shown us much in terms of throwing the ball. He did make a few throws in the Kentucky game when they upset Kentucky, but his numbers on the year, 385 yards, 7.3 yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks, really hasn't looked great as a thrower. And the Ole Miss pass defense, even in the loss to Kentucky, they were pretty good. I mean, just 5.43 yards per pass attempt allowed. So basically what I'm getting at here, South Carolina is not going to be able to throw the ball in this game. I'm pretty certain on that. It's going to come down to whether or not South Carolina can run the ball. We know Sellers is an athlete, and again, we're assuming he's going to play. I'm reading he's most likely going to play. So Ole Miss definitely needs to be cognizant that he can run 196 rushing yards on the year, 4 rushing touchdowns, 4.4 yards per carry. Kind of the same looking splits with South Carolina's run game. Week 1 against Old Dominion, they couldn't run the ball at all. 3.11 yards per carry, 174 yards rushing. Since then, it's been better, but not elite. I mean, 4.7 yards per carry is great, but it's not like they're setting the world on fire. And there were a couple long broken runs there, one by Sellers, one by Rocket Sanders. So, look, I don't think this South Carolina offense is very good. Look at their offensive line numbers on the season. It's like deja vu of last year. Last year, Spencer Rattler was running for his life. It's looking like the same sort of thing. They're terrible in pass protection and not creating a ton of space in the run game either. So against Ole Miss elite defensive front, that is a mismatch. And if you're expecting South Carolina to run the ball here, I mean, Ole Miss against the run in their first 4 games before the Kentucky game, they're allowing 1.1 yards per carry. That's not a typo, 1.1. 34.5 rushing yards allowed per game. And even in the Kentucky game, I mean, it's not like Kentucky was running the ball. 1.98 yards per carry, 93 rushing yards in the game. So plain and simple, I don't think South Carolina's offense is going to do shit in this game. Is Jackson Dart going to be in some situations against that South Carolina pass rush? Yeah, but I think Ole Miss offensively bounces back enough to win this one by double digits. So it'll be Ole Miss -9 for me. Not in love with it. Haven't bet it yet. I mean, I do think it's the right side, but might be a little trigger shy when it comes to college football right now. I can't seem to get a grasp on things. So I like Ole Miss here, -9. I'll let you know if I end up betting it. We'll talk about it on the live shows throughout the week. But as of right now, it's just a lean for me.
I completely forgot to include this trend at the end. Ole Miss, as a road favorite since 2021, 6-0-2 against the spread. You guys know I'm not a huge trend guy, but thought that was interesting enough to include in the video. I literally forgot to say it, and I shut the camera and the lights and shit down. So Ole Miss, 6-0-2 against the spread as road favorites. Yeah, I like Ole Miss here.
If you want to see all the bets I have open, head over to KyleKirms.com and click on Open Bets. You'll see all mine as well as everyone on the staff here. Also, if you sign up for Sauce Network Plus, it comes with access to the Discord, and you can participate in the weekly betting league. $150, and one of these trophies go to the winner every single week. So if you're interested, head over to the website and sign up. Let's have ourselves a good week there. I need a bounce-back college football week. NFL's been going great. College football has been going terribly. Really need that to turn around. So let's stay focused and stay disciplined. It'll turn around. It's just frustrating at the moment. Remember to bet responsibly. Talk to you in the Discord.